We start with the Republican field as it is. Howard Fineman couldn't ask for a better guy to have one tonight. MSNBC political analyst and Huffington Post Media Group editorial director. And political analyst Jennifer Donahue is back. You know you're in the campaign season. Public policy fellow at the Eisenhower Institute. Now, I have a proposition I'm going to end with tonight. I'm going to start with it. But let's go to the news here. Here's Rick Perry in Iowa today taking a swipe at President Obama. This guy throws haymakers. Let's listen.
Today, I'm asking the President of the United States to do something. He's coming into Iowa here in a little bit, and I'm asking him to do something. He says he's on a listening tour, so I'm going to talk to him. And here's what I'm going to say to him. Mr. President, you need to free up the employers of this country to create jobs.
What is that, post-traumatic Bush disorder? What are we looking at, Howard? I'm hearing those G's disappearing over the horizon there, the good old southern draw, healthy, western, windswept. Well, he's got bales of hay there.
I just came back from Iowa, and I can tell you that Rick Perry is made for the ultra-retail politics of a place like Iowa. His organization skills remain to be seen. But as a retail politician...
Explain that word to the public.
Well, retail politician means person to person, eye to eye. You know, and he doesn't say, I'm going to tell him. He said, I'm gonna tell him something. And that's going to translate. And he's very approachable. He's very emotional. Firm handshake, look in the eye. Great at that kind of stuff. Michelle Bachmann, I can tell you, is a superb organizer with a lot of women, by the way, running her organization.
Interesting.
Women who come out of the traditional family values thing. But Perry is a tremendous guy on the stump. He really is.
Okay, I have no idea what my friend Jennifer Donahue is going to say, so I'm going to ask you a wide-open question. Is this cake baked? In other words, are we looking at the field right now? We're not sitting there saying, will big Chris Christie come in the field? Will Jeb Bush come riding in? Will Haley Barbour? Will Mitch Daniels? Is that over with? We're past the preseason. It's now these three people we're looking at with the hot guy on the road there, the cowpoke, Rick Perry looking pretty good right now. Michelle Bachmann having the only W next to her name. She's actually won one now, the straw vote this weekend. And, of course, Mitt Romney is the old Republican Party, perhaps tired old Republican Party. Is that the big three and the only three right now?
I think it's the big three, and it's the only three, Chris. I think what you have is Perry coming in so strong that it's his to lose. Romney, a very, very beleaguered frontrunner who's had months of a wide-open campaign to prove that he can do what Howard just described, which is a little bit of handshaking and a little bit of eye contact. And Romney showing that he's about as robotic as Al Gore was. I think Michelle Bachmann is also a very good retail campaigner, also very organized. But I talked to a Republican strategist and very big donor today who's supporting Perry. And while we were talking for about an hour, his phone didn't stop ringing. It was Pawlenty supporters, it was Bachmann supporters, it was Romney supporters, and it was money coming in. He can match Romney dollar for dollar, no matter how much money Romney spends. It is over for Mitt Romney.
Okay, you're looking down the road. I love your projection here, Howard, and that's a bold projection. Yes. You doing the regular street corner, what's it called? Shoe leather reporting can't go that far yet. You'd be ruining the whole year. But let me ask you about that speculation that she just offered up as a projection. Could it be that Obama is the luckiest politician in history? The luckiest, because instead of having to defend himself for the middle, he now goes against a hard writer.
Okay, what annoys me about you is that you always say what I'm thinking before I write it.
Okay, well, thank you.
Exactly.
That's why I'm here.
But President Obama is unlucky in the economic circumstances that he's facing now, although that's what helped get him elected. Economically unlucky, politically lucky. Because as I see it here, and Jennifer, I'm not sure I would...
Lucky at cards, unlucky at love.
Yes, I'm not sure I would make the bold prediction Jennifer's making about Mitt Romney. He's got smart people, and he's got some staying power, perhaps. But Rick Perry is in exactly the right place. He can go to his right with the Tea Party people and the evangelical Christians because of his background that you talked about.
It's real.
But he can also talk about being a governor, being a decision maker, being a job creator, which is more in Mitt Romney's space. So Romney's the one in the middle. Perry's the one in the middle, actually, where strategically, which is the place to be. He can do the retail stuff, but as Jennifer says, he's going to be raking in money. I think he's going to get a lot of the people who endorse Tim Pawlenty in Iowa. Tim Pawlenty did it the traditional way, collecting endorsements from mayors and Republican state committeemen and so on. Most of those people, I think, won't go to Romney because they could have gone to Romney before. Now they're likely to go, most of them to Perry, only a few of them to Bachmann.
Boy, here's Rick Perry this weekend making clear he's very much anti-Washington. Let's listen. This guy basically, I've never heard anybody talk quite like this. Let's listen.
America is not broken. Washington, D.C. is broken. I'll promise you this. I'll work every day to try to make Washington, D.C. as inconsequential in your life as I can. It's not the era of big government's over. He's saying the era of government is over, Jennifer. This is strong stuff. If he can go as far right as that, as to say, let's get rid of the government, basically. Let's get rid of Washington, basically. If he can go all the way and hug that right-wing corner, that means nobody's to his right, including Bachmann. That means the Republican Party is safe for the Tea Party. Does this mean, I'm listening to you a minute ago, take a minute, has the Tea Party taken over the Republican Party and Romney's not in the party anymore?
I believe the Tea Party has taken over the Republican Party, and we saw evidence of that in 2010 when the Tea Party took over the Republican Party in Washington. What Perry is failing to talk about is that the Tea Party is right of where the electorate is. And so what you're likely to have, as you were sort of alluding to, is a really weak candidate in Romney who probably cannot beat Obama anyway, but a too far right candidate in Perry, and not quite as far right as Bachmann in his rhetoric. And the Republican strategist I talked to today said that there have been assurances up and down the line that Perry will not do what Bachmann is doing. He's not going to talk about abortion, God, and guns. He's going to talk about jobs and the economy, and he's going to stay away from what they called the crazy talk. But I think still in a general election, you have
Hasn't
Obama.
he already been there? Hasn't he already lost his virginity in that area by saying he's talking about secession from the Union? How do you erase that from the records?
They're going to love that in New Hampshire. People here want to secede. I think Perry is talking on that message. I think he's talking to libertarians. He's taking Ron Paul's 10%. He's taking some of Bachmann's 10, 15%. I think he's taking some of that libertarian perspective and pulling it right in. And I don't think that's so far from where the Republican Party is right now.
I think you'd be a good running
right.
Jennifer, I think you'd be a great running mate. I looking at this, you up there in New Hampshire, perfect.
Let me ask Jennifer a question. You know New Hampshire as well as anybody. Could Rick Perry beat Barack Obama in the general election in New Hampshire?
Yes. I think people here are so frustrated, and unemployment is not as high in New Hampshire as it is in the rest of the country. But people here are so anxious about the economy, working 2 jobs, unemployed, underemployed, that I think Barack Obama is in very, very serious danger, even in a state like New Hampshire, which he carried easily last time.
Let's take a look at Michelle Bachmann, who did win the Iowa straw poll. Here she is. She says the political tide is turning in her direction. Let's listen.
People feel it now, the fire. They recognize that Obama can be beat. People saw there's a movement. She's speaking for me. She's fighting for me. I can trust this woman. She's not a politician. That's the difference. Because, you see, I'm a real person.
This is how far right the Republican Party's going. As you write brilliantly, as always, Howard, here it is. And Jennifer responded to this after Howard. He said the Republican Party's got some new commandments. There are 10 of them. It's the Decalogue again. But here are just 5 of them. Thou shalt not raise any taxes. Thou shalt pass a constitutional amendment making abortion illegal. Thou shalt pass a constitutional amendment defining marriage as the union of a man and a woman. Thou shalt repeal Obamacare. Thou shalt repeal the Dodd-Frank banking regulation. We'll talk about it, Odd. What's wrong with this picture? They say they like the founding fathers, Jennifer. They just don't like anything they wrote. So I guess the question is how much they're going to amend. They certainly want to start with Obama. So in all seriousness, is this a track where you just want to veer to the right, safest place to be?
It's the only place left, Chris. I think the Republican Party overcorrected when they nominated McCain, and they were trying so hard to get away from Bush and anything that Bush represented that they picked someone who couldn't get the momentum and couldn't get the enthusiasm. It was like Bob Dole all over again, when Bob Dole was sort of given the nomination because he was the last man standing, because people were familiar with him, but he had no chance in '96. And I think if you were to give it to Romney, he'd have a tough time him, getting the enthusiasm behind him. When you're a Republican-based candidate, you've got a much better chance at getting the kind of momentum and the kind of crowds out that you need.
Chris, when you talk to me,
Jennifer, you are so strong. I have never heard you so brilliant. You're either brilliantly wrong or brilliantly right, but you're brilliantly something. Nobody's going to doubt what you said tonight. This is Rick Perry's to lose. He's going to win this thing. Romney's yesterday. Bachmann can't keep up with this guy. It's all about the right. No more pretending down the middle. The Republican Party's the conservative Tea Party, and that's the way it stands. It's going to stand that way next November. Did I get you right?
You got me right.
Howard, your response?
All I can say is, as far as Romney is concerned, when you talk to their people, they give you all kinds of tactical reasons why Romney's still in a good position. Like, he's behind, but all the other cars are going to crash and this kind of thing. Yeah. They're not talking about why he's so great and why he's going to bust through. They're talking about why the other people ahead of him
he's
are going to crash.
He's not the guy to shoot the moon, is he?
You know what I'm saying?
I know. He doesn't shoot the moon. Let me ask you, now that you're so hot and I've built you up, Jennifer, all the way here, now you're on the top of the game here. Who, based upon any reporting that you've had your hands on, does the White House fear of this trio?
They fear Perry the most because Bachmann doesn't have experience. She has the same knock on her that Obama himself had. She has no executive experience. That's a problem in a general election. Okay. She's a very formidable candidate, though, but it's Perry's to lose.
Well, Howard, who do they fear most? Can you report?
Here's what I will say. Rick Perry on paper is perfect for this Republican Party, as Jennifer's been describing it.
How about for next November?
But we don't know what his record is going to look like after it's closely examined and re-examined by his opponents, by the National Press Corps, and by the Democrats. He may have a lot of explaining to do, and if he can go from what he's like on paper to defending it, then he's got a real good shot.
I'll tell you one thing. Any reporter in America who write anything about Rick Perry right now that tells us who he is will be on the front page of the paper tomorrow.
Absolutely.
This is one hot story right now. Thank you, Howard Fineman. Boy, you're good tonight. Jennifer Donahue up there, the Eisenhower Institute. Thank you for joining us. We need you back here.